it's kind of a cliche to say that good people participate in evil, and that's probably one of the biggest problems, where you have the masses amounts of people that in little ways here and there participate in evil actions, and it's usually unwittingly. They don't know they're actually doing it. They think they're doing the right thing. And so it's really easy to point over there and say, oh, those people are doing that. Other people, the other side of the world, or other cultures, or other, just your neighbors, or anybody that's outside of yourself. It's real easy to point to them and say, they're doing that, right? But how do you try to avoid participating in evil yourself? And that's a challenge, because most people have a blind spot for their own failings and their own problems. They have a blind spot for their own family members. They can't see the flaws in their own family members. So I think that's important to, take time to focus on your own family members and what flaws that they have, so that way you don't repeat them in yourself and then pass them along to your kids. So that blind spot is a little bit of a challenge for everybody, basically. But how do you do it? Well, you have to be an autonomous person to begin with. And a lot of people don't take the time to guard their autonomy as an individual and to think for themselves, instead of just accepting the conclusions that other people assert. And so it's really easy to outsource your thinking to conclusions and trends and ideologies and different worldviews and perspectives, and just go with whatever seems right in the moment, and just accept that particular conclusion. And usually these identities, these ideologies, have they're fleshed out pretty good. They're a full, complete set of assertions, not just a single assertion. It's like a whole Christmas tree full of assertions and everything, and conclusions. And so therefore, a conclusion is an endpoint. And if you're at an endpoint, you have no place to go. You've already there. You've already reached your destination there with a conclusion. And so therefore, if you think that there is you have the conclusion, it's like, it's like you thinking you're in a particular place on the map when you're not there, So like, say you want to drive to New York City. It's like, well, you're actually in Alabama, but you think you're in New York City. So therefore, you're not going to drive anywhere. You're already there because you think you've reached that conclusion. You've reached that space, but you haven't reached that place, right? You just think you have, which makes you inactive in trying to find that place. You'll never find it because you already think you're there. So the conclusions that you don't arrive based on your own understandings. Your mind didn't come up with that conclusion. You accepted the assertion of somebody else. An assertion is just somebody saying it. And since you don't have the tools to validate it, because you never went down that road of trying to validate it and understand it for yourself, it just felt right. So just, go with it, right? That's the way vast majority of people operate. They don't actually understand what they're basically staking their life on and teaching their kids. They don't really fully understand it. They think they do because they already have a conclusion, right? So therefore I'm at the end point. But there's always more to the story. There's always more information that's not being considered, especially when you deal with ideologies. Ideologies have a confirmation bias inherent in them, where all the information that aligns with that ideology is bolstered, put on a pedestal, and everything that does not align with that ideology is basically ignored or rejected in some way, downplayed. So it makes you feel like you got it all figured out, and that you have a validation structure because other people are aligned with you. Thousands of other people think the same way because they are aligned and they have adopted those ideologies. So therefore, it reinforces it. It's like, hey, this is good. Everybody else that I know, that they're smart too, just like me, right? But at the same time, none of the people have the understanding to argue it on their own. They just have conclusions and assertions, and then if you question those and try to dig past the surface, they just get mad because they have that's just the surface level. They don't have any actual understanding. So that's where when the anger comes in and the stuff like that. So we're recognizing in other people is a way of understanding yourself. You just hold a mirror up. It's like, okay, if that person was me, if somebody asked me a question about something based on what I think I've reached a conclusion, and I get mad because I don't know where to go, because I don't know how to answer the question, maybe I don't understand what I'm talking about, So that's a very important thing to realize in ourselves, is that we can get caught up in the same way other people do it. We can do it. And so participating in evil is basically gets snuck in to those type of things, those ideologies, those actions, those crusades, those whatever, there's this collective that you get embedded into. And then also aligned in that collective, there's also agendas that you may not even be aware of because you don't understand what's happening to begin with. So therefore, if there's something gets in there, you won't know because you don't understand it to know it. Like if you don't know how to code computers and you just see a wall of text of coding, page after page after page, you wouldn't recognize if there was a virus in there or not. If there was some kind of something nefarious within the code, because it's just a bunch of code, just a stack of digits and stuff. You don't know. It's completely foreign to your mind. So looking at it, you wouldn't be able to tell if there was a virus embedded within that code. So it's the same thing with ideologies and subtle actions in each individual people take add up to reinforcing each other, which snowballs into more and more potential people thinking it's the right thing and then going down that road, And so you just look at history, to give you any examples of where people are actually en masse, like massive amounts of people, the majority of people in countries do or support things that are absolutely insane. And then in the hindsight, you're like, oh yeah, those people are crazy. Why would they ever do it? I would never do that, right? But people do it every day. People align themselves with things that are evil and wrong almost every day. Like it's just a common thing because they just don't know. They just don't think about it. So to avoid, because it's really, as I say, easy to sell yourself plausible deniability. Well, I didn't know I was doing something wrong, so therefore I'm not held accountable. It's like, no, you're participating in evil out of just sheer willingly being ignorant, right? Because if you're not guarding your autonomy, you're not being an autonomous person, you're not proactive in avoiding conclusions that you don't fully understand. Everything that you don't understand, like if you don't understand it, you can look into it. You can, start the road of trying to understand it. But if you come to a conclusion within a month or something, you probably didn't get to the bottom of it. You're probably just scratching the surface of it. So it's something that you really need to look into and understand it fully, and it might take years to understand something enough to have it sway your actions. So like say if it's irrelevant information, irrelevant to your life to where it's not swaying your actions are not changed in any way, then, it doesn't really matter a whole lot. It matters in that satisfies your curiosity. But if your actions are being changed based on some assertion, some conclusion, some ideology, some whatever it happens to be, movement, protesting, whatever it happens to be, if your actions are being swayed, you're going about your daily life and all of a sudden your actions are being changed. That is where you have to make sure, for sure, that you understand it to the greatest degree you possibly can, what you're doing and why you're doing it. Because it's so easy for people to get swept up in doing things they don't understand, they have absolutely no clue, and just turn that on yourself. You as an individual can get caught up in doing something. Me as an individual can get caught up in something that I have absolutely no idea about it, what it is, what's going on. I have no understanding, even if I think I do. But once my actions start getting changed, then, that's where the problem comes in, because you become a tool now. You're a tool of that. You're aligned. You're a tool of the ideology or whatever it is. You're being used, basically, a chump. If you don't know precisely what you're doing, like, why are you doing it? If it's not something that you came up with. Okay, here's the other problem. People think that they came up with it, which, if you think you came up with the same thing that everybody else came up with, the exact same thing, the meme goes like, it shows the news agency or whatever, and they're basically, changing the chip in the person's head, right? That's the meme of this whole idea, is that people think that they are autonomous and free-thinking people, but yet their opinions change lockstep with whatever's popular in the moment. From week to week, next week, whatever happens to be influencing their brain, that's what they're all of a sudden think that they think. They think their opinions are that now. And they're just like grooves on a record, where they're just perfectly aligned, and that needle is just like riding along that grooves on a record, how you can tell is if you're perfectly aligned with thousands and thousands of other people so precisely that it's like it's like a combination lock, to where there's no way it could be replicated in any other way besides external influence, right? So having consciously being active in avoiding conclusions, active just any stimulus, active in avoiding every external stimulus as you can, because unless you are personally seeking it out. I'll give you an example. You go in the grocery store to buy a loaf of bread. That's a very specific loaf of bread, right? One that is healthy for you, not all the other poisonous stuff. And so you walk in the door, and there's all this other stuff there. And there's people over here, and there's people over there, and they're talking about how great this is and that is and everything. Well, if you walk in with the focus on buying this specific type of bread, and you walk out with a whole grocery cart full of stuff, or even anything, you pick up a pack of gum or whatever it is, then you have been influenced by external things to get you to do something, to sway and change your action. You've been nudged in certain ways. And so there's like little subtle things, but if you're active in avoiding any other stimulus besides what you are focused on, then you won't be easily swayed, Now it changes, like let's say you walk in a store and I remember I need to get this or whatever. I need to get some peanut butter or whatever it is, right? That's different. But if you go in and you never, thought that you were going to get something else, and then you happen to just get something in a whim or random just because you happen to see it or whatever, it's because your mind is wandering, your mind is looking for other things, and your mind is allowing all this external stimulus. You watch commercials, and then all of a sudden you're like buying all this stuff because you saw a commercial, because you're allowing external things to influence your perspective and change your actions. Your actions are being changed, So very important to guard your autonomy, as an individual, be active in avoiding everything else that's not on your straight and narrow path, There's tons of pitfalls. There's tons of gutters that you can get caught up into. Gutters, pitfalls, wrong paths that seem appealing, that it's going to take you off of your path. Everybody has their own individual, unique path that nobody else can, tell you what it is. It's your path, and that's it. And So as an autonomous individual, you will be focused on that and understand that you have to blaze your own path. You have to do your own push-ups, right? Nobody else can do your own push-ups for you. You have to do your own push-ups. You have to do your own exercises. Nobody can do that for you. So it's like with the internet and algorithms and AI and all the things that are trying to push and pull your brain and get you to do and change your actions and align with different ideologies and buy certain products and vote for certain people or whatever, like the collective pressure, peer pressure, whatever, that is trying to get you to do and change your actions to be a tool of them. If you're not actively, forcefully working towards your own goals, on your own path, then by default, you're going to be used as a tool to accomplish somebody else's goals.